Thanks, Alessandra. Well, good, cool. Yeah, cool. Let's crack on then. I'm sure some people know me. Tom. I started and run Alba Orbital. We built PocketQubes, as you probably guessed. And yeah, I thought maybe I'd just try and. We've obviously done a few talks, and we don't want to obviously saturate the event with just Alba related event stuff. But yeah, my talk's more about maybe just like general barriers to adoption of PocketQubes in sort of more mainstream sort of circles. It's still very niche and very fringe in sort of the space world, and some people maybe have heard of it and said, "Oh, that's cool, but come back to me when it can do something," and things like that. So this is more about some suggestions about what we can do collectively as a kind of a community to try and maybe just remove as many sort of the either real world problems or actually perceived problems and how we maybe go about doing that. Yeah, so thanks for coming. I mean, like, it sounds like super trivial, but like having a workshop is like really good for the community. I mean, it's like sounds super obvious, but like let's start with the simple stuff, like show up, chat, discuss things, move on. So yeah, I'm not really talking about Alba, but if you're interested in working at Alba, then send me your CV. We just hired someone from the ESAT team, the Spanish guys. So that's really cool that we now have people joining Alba who've worked on other PocketQubes. So that's really cool. Yeah, really the mission of the company. Sort of playing to a home crowd here probably, but yeah, really wanted to advance the Pocket cause. I mean. We often get asked, well, why didn't you just build CubeSats? And I mean, the way I kind of look at it is like it's like hundreds of people doing CubeSats, and that's cool. And there's a lot of people with like decades worth of experience doing that. And as a new company, we want to be on the next wave, and you can actually kind of do interesting things now on PocketQubes for the first time. And we're trying to drive a lot of that forward. And we don't really want to be like the 100th best CubeSat company. We want to be like the first PocketQube company, and it'd be great to have more competition. That'd be really cool. And really for it to matter, right? I mean, there's no point being the big fish in a little pond if the pond's tiny. You want to grow everything, right? I mean, it helps everyone, so. So yeah, PocketQubes. So why are we so interested in PocketQubes, and why do we care about it, and why have I spent 5 years of my life doing it, I guess? I mean, really it's just like getting more things in space, I think. The more agile you can make things, the more things move forward quickly. And PocketQubes are kind of like a tool which allows you to fail, and failure is actually really important for any sort of tech movement. If you had to write codes on the internet and you could only have one shot at it and it had to be perfect, then there wouldn't be any websites, right? So yeah, so that's why PocketQubes for Alba, and I don't really see us deviating. I mean, I think we'll do more of the value chain, like maybe applications, and we're doing launch now, and maybe other services around that. But it will always be with a PocketQube focus for sure. There's a bit of a dark period. I mean, so I think I'm the only person who's actually been to every PocketQube workshop, which is kind of I don't know if that's good on me or sad or whatnot. But there was one in 2014 in the US. There's actually two technically, but they were part of the same series. And then there was really nothing for 3 years, which was kind of quite sad because I was running a Pocket company. I think it's the only Pocket company in the world at that point. And it was like, I think we were like 2 people. So it's really like not a fun place to be. So it's really on the sort of the edge of it all. So obviously we don't want to have like, go long periods without like meeting up and chatting and discussing things and sharing sort of knowledge and progress and things. And there was really a dark period, in my opinion, that it shouldn't really be repeated. So now hopefully we'll have annual ones here. The mechanical standards, so it's like, I think it was last year's talking point, or certainly like when you run into people, it's like one of the things people talk about. So I believe there's a grade now. I think we're like still like, there's some nuances of the ICD we're still trying to like flesh out. But I mean, broadly all the dimensions are great, everyone's happy. I don't know, Sylvana's here who's been leading all that on the Dell side, and I think Chantal's coming as well. So, but basically we're trying to make sure that people who are building pods at least like all agree on what PocketQube is, dimensions, and we can publish that. And we're sort of calling it the open PocketQube standard because we want to make sure that there's no deviation mechanically, because there's been a lot of, issues on that front, let's say. So things are moving a lot quicker on that front, which is really good. And that was really one of the big blockers, I think, for PocketQube adoption. Okay, so yeah, so challenges geography. I mean, this might seem a bit random, right? Given we're all largely European, although we have people from outside Europe, which is great. Thanks for coming. So we're very European centric, which is cool because, like, in one way, it means like we can all meet up for a workshop in Delft and we can, like, that's cool. But obviously, we don't want to just be a European centric thing. And like, why is it European centric? I mean, I think it's largely because Alana in the US in the US, if you want to fly a university mission, you don't have to pay for your upmass. So essentially, you can build a 1U or a 6U and it costs the same because you get free lunch. So you're not really penalized like at market rates for doing a bigger satellite. I mean, it costs the same in bits largely, maybe a few thousand more in your cells or something for your solar panel. But there's really a market failure with Alana, and that really kind of screws PocketQubes up in the US a lot, I think, for education. And we're not part of that because PocketQubes aren't like recognized on that program. And we've invited people from Alana to come, and they don't respond. So, should we try and push for that? Should we not? Who cares? Is that a big deal? Should there be a European version of that? Should we push for that? We'll see. I mean, the good news in Europe is like the density of teams is getting bigger. So like every major country has a PocketQube team now at least, and that means you can meet up and chat and discuss ideas, which then creates the flywheel spinning. We're about 10 teams I reckon about just now in Europe, sort of seriously like building things. And just like how do we get that from maybe 10 to 100? That's kind of a big challenge. And like Emerald was saying earlier, with Vector, obviously like launch rate, it's kind of chicken and egg. People don't want to launch unless they know there's a launch, but people who put on the launch services need to know there's enough demand to launch, and it's this kind of, if no one kind of breaks the chicken and egg cycle, there is nothing essentially. So it's, it's one of those challenges. So awareness is in our region, so it's cool that we're doing this here and everyone showed up and we're sold out, and that's great. But I mean, should we start looking at other regions? So we're starting to get quite a lot of interest in Asia. We've sort of been talking with NUS. I mean, they were chatting about sending someone. I don't know if they did or not in the end. Potentially in Singapore, like sort of middle of this year rather, July time. So we're sort of mulling that. So if anybody's interested, maybe either going or talking, maybe like a one-day event in US to try a national in Singapore to try and spread the word. And there's a few teams in the region now, and if they could kind of meet up, maybe that would help spur interest in that part of the world. So I think that's kind of the way that we can kind of help move it out of just Europe, because Asia has the same problems that Europe does in terms of cheap, easy to launch satellites, essentially. So I don't want to sort of duplicate too much of previous talks, so I'm not sure exactly what was exactly covered there and what wasn't, but launch is the problem, right? I mean, everyone's like, this would be really cool, like, get a satellite, and then we go buy launch, and then everything's sorted, and we launch, and we try, and we fail. I mean, we've been waiting a long time in Unicorn 1, and it's, we kind of just sort of, realized we're just going to have to do it ourselves. So we have the pod outside, so that's the flight pod, or assuming it's like everything's as we expect, it should be the flight pod. It's not fully built up. The springs mechanism is not fully done, and Andrew's going to talk more about it tomorrow for Alba. But yeah, so we have the Alba pod that we've been doing. We developed that with ESA, and that's now available, and we're going to fly that on the Vector launch later this year. It's Delphi PQ, not the PQ one, so I'm not updated slide there. But yeah, basically, we're flying one of our Unicorn 2s, and Delphi are flying one of their Delphi PQs. Quite a big deal. It's a dedicated PocketQube launch. I mean, it kind of is because it's a test launch, but I think it's still pretty cool that we're like the primary customer for the first time. So, so yeah, that's pretty cool. And it's first flight of AlbaPod, and really AlbaPod, like, you kind of need pods and companies wanting to launch stuff to allow people to then do their missions. It's kind of, but there needs to be enough demand. It's kind of chicken and egg. So yeah, I don't want to sort of just repeat what Andrew said or Emerald said. So cluster one's happened this year, or whenever Vector launched their first rocket, orbital rocket. We're on the first one. So second cluster, this probably covers all of what Andrew said. We actually, I think, have 3 customers now signed up. I think we're about 4P, so like 2 1Ps and a 2P, paid deposits, 10% deposits. And really, these two vehicles we're kind of interested in, PSOV and Electron. We were steering towards PSOV because obviously they're quite cheap and that's great, but we started signing up American customers. So then that creates a whole bunch of issues around how do you get a US-owned satellite to India. Like, it turns out you need to like hire a lawyer basically. So we were like, that's kind of the two we're on just now, and it's a new process for us. So we're maybe going to steer more towards the US option, but that's what we're looking at. And the pricing is like commercial rates. I mean, like this is like would be sustainable if we can hit maybe 4 or 5 customers per launch to sort of break even. So yeah, the first one's like we're just doing it like well below cost to get us in orbit and get something happening. And the second one, we're trying to sort of cover ourselves and try and sort of prove that it's a real business. That'd be really cool. And yes, MOU and deposit would get you on that. And it is selling pretty quickly, to be honest. So we'd hopefully be able to sell it by the time the vector launch happens, which would be probably 2 pods, we reckon. Yeah, so back to the point, like something I was talking to Jasper about just European-wide program. We have a lot of people now who are in Europe building PocketQubes, and obviously QB50 was massive for the CubeSats to get that really going over here. And the question is, like, should we look at some sort of Horizon 2020 or some sort of mega project like Constellation where everyone builds their own PocketQube but it's part of a fleet or something like that? Like what they've done in that program. Is it doable? Does anybody want to do that? Is there enough will to do that? You know, that would certainly help people get funding if we could get a big sort of consortium together, but obviously it takes a lot of time, very unlikely to happen because of the way these things work. But if we don't try, there'll be really nothing. I think really getting a program with some description is really the next step for PocketQube. There's no dedicated PocketQube programs like from like funding bodies or to sign up for. There's CANSAT programs, there's like CubeSat programs, but there's nothing on our standard just now, unfortunately. But hopefully it would come in time. Yeah, I've kind of chopped the top of this graph off. But yeah, essentially this is so yeah, tech specs. So so a general challenge is like people say, oh, that's a cool idea, you build a lot of satellite, but like it'll be crap, right? Because like it's tiny. And then you go, well, there's actually good ways to build PocketQubes if you've actually like researched the bits. So this is like a little graph kind of threw together last night in Excel, which is a bit rough, but it was basically to plot against the peak power versus the year. So like what was the best PocketQube platform that we could find, and then what's available. And just to get people like people kind of struggle with the whole exponential improvement technology thing. And we've even seen it going from Unicorn 1 to Unicorn 2 on the processors, that our processors like double the speed and half the power consumption. And we're on generation 2, and obviously if you keep on doing that, then you know the capabilities sort of go crazy. And one sort of thing that people usually like to sort of criticize PocketQubes with is, well, that's cool, but you've got no power, right? So so we developed quite a large deployable solar panel. I'm sure a lot of you've seen, and it's like some of the hinges and stuff, and the cells are out there if you want to take a closer look. So yeah, we're about 20 watts. Depends on the exact figure. I think we're around. I think the official number is 19.96 watts, sort of room temperature generation. Sort of peak on Unicorn 2. Depends, but the averages are around between about 10 and 15, depending on how you work it and how you point it, and the mission and things like that. But certainly we can average about 10 watts, we think, like fairly comfortably, which is not far off like standard 3U missions. I mean, it's kind of 3U with maybe single deployables or no deployables. And people obviously don't realize this because this is like, we've just been doing this in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, so it's fairly new development in the field. Data rates, so we've went about 20x up on data rates. I mean, data rates is one of those easier ones to scale than other things. So we went from about 9K6 baud, about 10,000 bits per second, up to about 200 kilobits per second. So that's doesn't seem like much, but on a percentage basis it's quite a lot. And we think actually the Unicorn 2 radio there's a path to about a megabit per second, depending on your ground setup, and you have to do some custom DSP. But it's possible, but it's kind of, is there enough demand for us to develop that? It's kind of chicken and egg on that again. Payload volume, so Unicorn 2 basically is one circuit board. I don't know if you've seen it, but like it's just, you know, integrated. So that means there's a lot of volume for cameras and other things that are bulky. So that's all quite good. We've got pointing now as well. We sort of say about 5 degrees. We'd probably be better than that, to be honest. Depends on what exactly you're doing, but that's sort of our kind of placeholder, sort of cover our ass sort of spec on that one. We think the hardware we have would probably get to about 1 degree if we really optimized it, and there are ways you can improve that over time if you add more sensors and knowledge and things like that. Use cases, so it was brought up earlier, it's like, this is cool, right? You've got this wonderful platform and like, you know, you've got launch and stuff, but like, what can it do, right? So we've done a few blogs now, so I mean, people can go read them on our website about just generally like, you know, different ideas for your PocketQubes and things like that. So we actually we're flying an EO payload on Unicorn 2A. So I don't know if we actually announced that yet, but it's essentially the same lines that GomSpace sell for their NanoEye product. It's a 70mm focal length tele-NASAR thing. So we got one of them, fits really nicely in our form factor. And the vector launch will probably be about 15 to 16 meter resolution because we're really low on that one. In the future though, we think you can get around just under 7 meters, about 500 km, if you really optimize the aperture. Like really, basically you'd oversize it. But you don't really need as much length as you've got. But there are basically ways to do it. But I think like 10 meter is doable in the near term if you really stick a big chunky lens on the end of it and design around that. So I think EO has potential there. We have some customers who are interested on the data for that. We're quite interested in different imaging at different times of day and things like that, which currently people can't do because everyone goes to a certain orbit, and something that the vector launch actually opens up quite nicely. IOD, IOV, so like basically in-orbit demonstration, in-orbit validation of technology. This is kind of the one that people are interested from old space mostly, we see. So you're doing some big grand mission and it's going to, I don't know, explore Jupiter or something, right? And you know, you want to convince your boss that like, you know, your widget's going to work. And it's like, well, why didn't you just fly it? I mean, to be honest, the hard bit is really just like getting the price point low enough for these things to make sense. Usually the strong argument is like radiation testing, because radiation testing is really expensive. So it's like, well, why would you spend 200 grand on a radiation test? Why wouldn't you just fly it? Because any radiation test is like not like for like conditions. And then they say, well, so any LEO or something like that would be much closer. But then it's like, you know, that's one of the arguments. And we're seeing a few people who are interested in that, but it's like trying to get the price point attractive enough that, and they have to have enough value in getting heritage basically. It has to be worth more than what we'd sell satellite for and the hassle. So it has to be a really mission critical part or something on a big mission. ADSB, AIS, so there's a couple of people doing this, like Paul's doing this I think, and Yaroslav's doing this. Yaroslav's got his boards out there if you want to go talk to him. So he's probably going to do a demo at some point on Yaroslav. So check out his ADSB receiver, it's pretty cool. AIS, I don't know, I mean this is more Yaroslav's domain, so he might be able to speak more about this thing. It just talks about AIS a little bit, or might mention it. GNSSR, I mean there's a lot of things we don't really know, to be honest. I mean Alba's a small company, we have to focus on the stuff that makes more sense commercially just now, which is like the boring stuff, like, you know, platforms, pods, that sort of thing. We don't really get to look at too many exotic payloads, but it's where the university guys can really maybe make some progress, because the whole ethos of universities is research, right? And they can maybe look at something that is more speculative and look at the payloads and really see what can be done. There's like quite a capable platform out there to host these things. Spectrum monitoring. Yeah, we're trying to convince, spectrum monitoring has been done with SMOG. SMOG guys aren't here, unfortunately, but essentially just looking at different parts of the spectrum. We're sort of pitching this to ESA just now, so I don't think Frank's in, but we're trying to get that put on one of the roadmaps at ESA as a mission, but we don't know if that'll have any success or not. And IoT, so there's a few people, there's actually quite a lot of people looking at IoT in general. Around the world now, so there's, you know, people who are interested in doing IoT for basic Internet of Things, so communicating with low power devices, a lot of that sort of thing. So that's quite an interesting use case. And I mean, these are all kind of basically just like copy and pasted from CubeSat. And it's like, well, can we do it with like smaller constraints? I mean, they probably will be new stuff that people aren't looking at. I'd say probably spectrum monitoring was the first that came out from PocketQubes, from the smug guys. That was pretty unique. And it's latterly been done on a bigger satellite. Yeah, so just tech challenges in general. I mean, like, it's always like a frontier, right? You want to make a more capable platform with better specs, and it's, you know, the more people that are developing mean the specs go forward quicker. So I mentioned this sort of over megabit per second radio. I mean, obviously it depends on what your use case is. For like imaging, you probably want that. For other use cases, you might not need it. Doing hyperspectral, good luck. I mean, it's like kind of one of those ones. We've done an S-band now. We haven't brought it with us because we actually need it in the office and we've only got one. Or two actually, because we need to talk to each other. Thermal design, so RF engineer and thermal engineer's not here, he's actually just running errands just now, but he'll be in later. The interesting thing is when you put all this power in a little box, it becomes a thermal nightmare. So that's something that we're spending quite a lot of time on trying to get our head around. How do we make sure we don't cook things or freeze things, and where does the heat go, and all that sort of stuff. So there's probably a lot of innovation that we need to look into and novel ideas for the thermal design of these things. The other one is separation switches. So this actually came up in our recent, we done a CDR with ISA, and one of the RIDs they mentioned was the separation between PocketQubes. So it's not in the standards. It's kind of one of these ones, like if maybe some academic people want to like research and do some sort of a PhD project. I'm not sure. I mean, like, we don't know whether it's needed or not. We're quite lucky in cluster one, we probably don't need it because we've got 2 3Ps. If we're launching a lot of 1Ps, you know, that could get quite messy. So maybe it'd be worth further investigation and maybe somebody publish a paper or something on it, because we'd be really keen to learn their readings. The other ones is like the power of the magnets, making sure that they're not too powerful. If we have 6 1Ps in an Alba pod and they all have quite strong magnets, there's an incident where a CubeSat from the US and Michigan actually docked with another 1U in orbit accidentally, and we want to avoid that scenario. So maybe like someone researches that and maybe provides like, you know, maximum rating of their or even just like some sort of like agreed kind of, you know, how do we all work together to get what we want done. Yeah, and just general more payloads would be nice. So yeah, I don't really have all the answers on the funding front. I mean, it is like quite messy and it depends on what your project is. We've had a lot of support from ESA and we're really indebted to them because without them we'd be screwed. There's a bit of local government funding, so we had some local government funding, Scottish Enterprise and a few other people, so they're quite good for kind of the companies, and even we're talking with a lot of councils about different use cases and maybe selling data to them. It's really a mixed bag. I mean, I think commercial, like Emerald said, is the big market that's going to emerge over the next sort of 5-10 years. And within that, there's also the university research funding and things like that. I haven't got on that slide. Military is an interesting one. I was trying to basically get like the military to come to this and like sort of play them off against each other. So it's like, well, you know, the US guys are coming, right? And then like you tell that to UK guys, and they're like, oh, we're coming too. And it's like, so we have a lot of interest there. We're certainly UK level. There's a lot of interest in the US, but it's kind of more space situation awareness type use case, I think, just now. It's quite interesting. Challenges, yeah. So it's probably going to come up at some point, the space bees thing. So Stefano's running a pretty good paper on tracking for PocketQubes, or Stefano, a few other people at Delft. So it's definitely worth a read. So I was trying to get my head around it, but basically you get radar. So the column on the right there is actually radar cross sections that NORAD, or I'm not sure if it's NORAD produced them or one of the agencies, but basically it's radar cross section of PocketQubes. So basically the issue is, if you look at it, it's like 0.02, and then REN for some reason is 0.2499, which basically means it's like half a meter by half a meter, which basically means it was wrong. And turns out Dove4 never actually released, so really REN should be Dove4, and REN on that one shouldn't actually exist because it doesn't have any active tailies. But the long and short of it is they can be totally tracked, and there's a lot of data there to suggest that they can be tracked. there's maybe an argument of how well can they be tracked, but they can be tracked. And it's largely to do with the radar cross-section is actually the key thing. It's not actually physical size, it's the radar cross-section. So maybe like, I was trying to think like, what could we do to kind of maybe alleviate the bad press on this front? And like, I've got a lot of journalist requests to talk about this, obviously, because it's like, you know, so how are you guys getting on the PocketQubes after the FCC like are banning all satellites under a certain size? It's like, yeah, well, we'll see. So maybe radar cross-section. I don't know if there's like maybe a test or something we could impose on people to maybe prove that your radar cross-section is like a certain size. And when people have the tape springs, it actually makes your satellite look a lot bigger on radar, strangely, because it reflects a lot of the energy. And there's different ways to do it. So like if you think about like, if you're designing a stealth fighter or something, you can make that look really small on radar, and vice versa. You can make something look quite small but bigger. So nobody really thinks about this when they design their satellites. And one of the things, the problems I think the SpaceB guys fell into was they tried to do it for KU band, but I think most of the tracking is currently UHF. So obviously not a great plan there. But the other good news is Space Fence has been announced and is probably coming online later in the year, which is quite interesting, which claims to get down to about 5 centimeters. So that's like a public kind of like claim, maybe even 1 centimeter, they say. So that should hopefully alleviate a lot of the problems publicly about this tracking issue. But empirically, like all PocketQubes are tracked and updated daily, it seems, on the tailies. So not many people know this. Yeah, more businesses. So like, obviously it's cool that Alba showed up in like a few other companies, and that's great. We don't want to be like the token company, right? I mean, it'd be cool if there were other 15-man companies doing PocketQubes. I mean, it's not like we want to be like the only guy in town. We'd rather there's like a community of those companies, and they all kind of feed off each other, and their success is somewhat tied. I mean, obviously we want to be like leading it because we've been doing it for long enough, and we want to be proof that, you know, we can be the best at it. But the more companies, the better, really, in our mind. And companies help drive awareness and help build products which make more use cases, and it's a virtuous cycle. So we were the first Pocket company. We got going about 5 years ago. So we proved you can build a 15+ man company in PocketQubes, which, to be honest, was not like incredibly obvious when I started. And obviously we're trying to just like keep the lights on and keep going like any sort of small business. But that's where we're at just now, and we hope that we can grow, you know, much bigger in the future once we get, you know, all our products sort of flowing and proven and things like that. So yeah, just self-fulfilling prophecy. The more people that buy into it, then it becomes easier to get. It's just a lot of inertia when you get these things going, and hopefully we've got momentum now. Yeah, so future Pocket community. So yeah, hopefully I'm doing okay for time. Yeah, cool. Yeah, we basically saw like raised all these things today. Hopefully, like we can kind of collectively solve them, or Alba can solve some of them, and hopefully other groups can help address some of the other ones. These are the ones that I kind of see as the obvious ones just now. Hopefully we'll be able to deal with them. There'll be other new set of problems we'll probably deal with once we actually fly these things regularly. Yeah, obviously, like Andrew said, a 3U CubeSat, you know, we can actually like get a lot of capabilities into a smaller form factor if you throw enough engineers at it. It's not really, people throw the kind of like the physical limitations at you, and really it's a combination of Moore's law and deployables is really the way you solve it. And it's like totally doable. So just getting that word out there that's actually not, you know, the case, that, you know, you can't do these things. And it's really density of satellite. People don't seem to design their satellites with density in mind, like power to weight or anything like that. And I think we're probably the first company that said like that's one of our key things. We want to really, even if you chat to people about CubeSat payloads, they're like, we didn't size optimize it, we didn't like do this, we didn't do that. It's like, well, why don't you do that? Because it's really effing expensive to launch it. So, you know, imagine your satellite's a gold bar, right? And then you want to like, so you buy this massive gold bar, and then like your gold bar is a lot cheaper, so you actually have a lot of gold bars, right? It's just mental what happens. So you want to optimize for the smallest gold bar you can, because it's really expensive to launch these things. And if we can be helpful, like let us know. It's like people in the red t-shirts are Alba people, obviously. And I mean, if we can help, it's like not just selling stuff. If we can help in general with introductions, or advice or pointers or anything like that, I mean, that's PocketQube related, obviously, then we're happy to help. And we're really keen for the community to grow. And we've been, this event actually started off as a spreadsheet I was pitching to people of like 5 people I knew in Europe that were maybe interested in PocketQubes. And it's cool to see it grown to, where we are today, and hopefully it'll grow much more in the future. Yeah, just to like show people, obviously, it's like a viable thing to do, and that actually now there's a combination of factors that make these things viable. Where maybe 5-10 years ago that wasn't necessarily the case. And yeah, if you want to email me. Try and get back to you as quickly as I can, I guess. So, cool. Any questions?
Don't laugh, Tom. Hello. Just great to hear that Alba and Delta and Ghost have got together and there's some movement on the mechanical spec. Can you give us any indication of when you think that's going to be? And also, I'm interested in like where that's going to be held, because obviously, for me, in terms of like going around doing lots of outreach, it's going to be the most valuable thing ever.
Yeah, I think it's actually on us to get back to the guys, actually. I mean, we've just been kind of mental trying to get everything sorted for this. So, I mean, the idea was to publish it today and have a big kind of unveil, but I forgot time with Silvana. So, so my understanding is, like, we need to go back with some amends. But, I mean, I don't know where people want to host it, whether Delft or Gauss or someone want to host it. I mean, I think basically the way we're looking at it is people who develop pods should probably, like, talk, and then from that, then people who develop can then take from that standard. And having multiple pods that are all the same form factor is actually the most important thing. Where it's physically hosted, I don't know, maybe just buy a domain for 20 quid. Yeah, I mean, we've got a website. I mean, we don't want it to be too tied to Alba. I mean, it came from the frustration of multiple divergent standards. So, and the way CubeSats do it, obviously Cal Poly's the host of the standards, and operators can deviate at their own risk if they want, but there is a home, and Delft obviously run the workshops, so that would be where I would probably pitch it as the place for that. But maybe we'll just buy a domain and chuck it on that. I don't know. Like, we need to actually chat.
So are we talking in terms of like weeks and days rather than months?
So the document is done basically. I mean, I think it's actually in my inbox because I need to like suggest Alba points on like some details. I mean, all the dimensions are agreed, everything high level is agreed. It's more just the weeds, really, technicalities and the wording of certain things. And I mean, I don't know. Like maybe Silvana can maybe talk about it later on or something about. She's kind of leading it mainly. I mean, we're trying to help, but yeah, Silvana has been really sort of driving it forward at the Delft side. So, and I think Chantal should be here at some point, hopefully. So, there. That was about. Hassles with Vanna, not me. That's like, things will happen. So.
When you talk about the permanent magnet organization on PocketQubes, is there any critical distance between two PocketQubes to get attached on space?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so we've got an ICD for AlbaPod now. I mean, I think I've sent people links, and we've not published it because it's very early draft. But people who are interested, like, let me know. I'll send you like a link to it. We don't want to quite publish it until we've got these things kind of ironed out. I mean, I think probably we'll have to have like a sort of recommended. It's tricky with the ICD. We don't want to like force too much on people, but also we want to make sure that like, so the other one's drag deployables, right? And I mean, I had to backtrack in this, but I mean, we initially weren't so keen that drag deployables go on our pod because we were a bit worried that like, what if it jams and people are going to be like, well, you guys sold us a launch, didn't deploy. What's happening, Tom, right? So we were a little bit concerned about that. But given the whole space bees thing with the antennas, like in the radar cross sections, it might be that we just have to find a way to make that happen. In terms of the magnet distance, probably the further they are away from each other, the better. So like if someone had them essentially right next to each other on their sallies and hadn't coordinated this is not going to end well. So maybe some sort of, it has to be within the, I mean, we don't really know at this stage. I think it is to be decided. By people who largely are building one piece because they know more than we do. We don't really build one piece, we do 2 and 3s mostly. So I would suggest maybe something in the center of the sally with a maximum size of magnet. I mean, that's how I would do it. But people have to agree, and like, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries.
Time for a question, but of course Tom is available during the breaks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The other thing is we've got a pub tonight. Can you speak? Pub Tierney's Pub from 8:30 in Delft. So everyone's welcome to come along. We just like reserve some space. So like I think it's cash only, by the way. So like it's a nightmare to use cards over here, like it really is. But yeah, come along to that. Everyone's welcome. Tell your pals.
Great.
Yeah. So. Cool.
Great initiative. Thank you.